grateful. I'm so excited about our conversation today. Listen, you all, I get a chance to have a pre conversation before every guest. And I always get excited whenever it's just we naturally, like our pre conversation could have been recorded and it would have been
Yeah.
awesome. Like you can tell when a person is in their zone of extraordinary and they're very passionate about the work that you do. And let me just say this before you introduce yourself. Prepare yourself for this conversation. When we say that these podcasts may ruffle feathers, if it hasn't ruffled the feathers yet, this
Yes.
episode may be the one that does it. And what do I mean when I say ruffle feathers? It just means that when we are interviewing people, the like top leaders who are truly spirit led and are moving with like a different aura, like they're not subscribing to the stress, the chase, the hustle culture. They're not subscribing to that. They're really, passionate and committed to living their life with a sense of peace, a regulated life. And really, a lot I've found to be true so far is a lot of the leaders are paying it forward by showing others how to do the same through their work.
Mhm.
And so when I mean ruffle feathers, I mean that there may be things that may like interrupt your theology or interrupt the way you perceive something or whatever. When that happens, because we want it to happen, that's where we want you to lean in and we want you to turn the lever up on your curiosity and turn it all the way down on your judgment and your assumptions, because
Mhm.
an open mind leaves room for growth leadership, and that's what we're about over here in the Peace Driven Leader universe. So with that being said, without further ado, I would love to be able to introduce to the room, to the studio, Miss Shervon Laurice. So thank you again. Please
Yeah.
introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Shervon. Let's see, I live in Maryland and I have been a psychotherapist for over 2 decades, and I am also a transformational coach. And I have also been trained in mindfulness practice as well. Go back, mindfulness practices and yoga therapy, as
Mm.
well as became a psychedelic therapist. Um,
Mm.
well. And so a lot of what I do is about transformation, helping people get to the place where they um, see themselves basically as
Mm.
God sees them, as God created them, for them to be able to come home to themselves.
Hey, I mean, it lines so perfectly, hence why you're here today. Coming home to yourself. If you're listening to this podcast under the sound of my voice, I just decree and declare that you are coming home to yourself, even now, that there's parts of you that have gone astray and of us. I mean, if we're fully transparent
Yeah.
through this life, through this journey, they're
Yeah.
pieces of us. And there's certain experiences that we have that almost like tears a piece of us and changes the very fabric of who we are, and then we have to go back and do the work, to align and realign back to our divine identity. And so I love that this is the work. I'm going to go straight in the gut on this question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Because I say the things that people don't want to say so that we can unpack it, because I just think that it
Yeah.
would just make a better society and it would allow us just as a humanity to get different perspective. And this doesn't
Mhm.
mean that I choose to agree or disagree. It's just the importance of creating a platform where other perspectives can be considered. And it may be one of those things where you pull a little here and pull a little there, and you were able to
Mhm.
create your own, belief system that brings you a sense of peace. And then you continue to take that with you on your journey. And that's why I
Yeah.
always say my disclaimer: I reserve the right to be wiser tomorrow. So I'm going to say that before I make a statement that may change as
I
I
love that.
evolve. Because, hey, with the information that we have, we're doing the best we can in the season
Yes,
we're in with the information and the knowledge that we have. Now, I will say
absolutely.
I've read tons of books. I'm an avid book reader. I absolutely love it. And I talk to many people and, I meditate. And so I really do leave myself to get a lot of information. And I have to sift it through the three, we call it the PSV, your principles, standards, and values. And so
Mm,
I'm going to say something to you that is based off of a value point that a lot of people have that are Christians. And I love to be able to use the word Christian because it's one of the largest religions that exist today. And then there's
mhm,
a lot of, I would say, conflicting beliefs when you say the word yoga, right? So, and I believe that sometimes it has to do with just a lack of knowledge, right? Not really understanding what all it has to do. But I can say that doing my own research, I haven't done a whole lot of it, but doing some research, I do understand why people in the Christian faith believe that yoga is connecting to a source or that is outside of God. So when you use yoga and
mm.
God in the same sense, and so I just want to really just kind of unpack this when it comes to your practice. First of all, were you aware that this controversy exists?
Oh, yeah, for the longest time.
Okay.
I think the first yoga class I ever took was in high school. And the school I went to, actually, this was in the '80s back in New York City. Um, and they offered yoga during gym. So, like, just
Wow.
like you could take volleyball, you could take up running, whatever the activity was, they also offered yoga. And I learned then that there was some controversy because they had
Mm.
to send us home with a note to our
Oh,
parents
wow.
in order for them to sign that note to approve for
Give you
us to take a yoga
permission.
class.
Yeah.
So I learned then, I think I was probably 16 or 17 years old.
Wow.
And so off and on through my young adulthood, I would come back to yoga, follow it, I'd move away and find another yoga studio and then come back to yoga. Um, but I have not understood why Christianity, and I'm saying this with the knowledge of this discussion, and my brother also is a minister. My mom is an ordained minister. My mom
Mm.
will do yoga, but my brother will not allow his daughter who wanted to do yoga for the
Mm.
same reason. And I have trained in several forms of yoga and yoga philosophy, and there has never been anything that I have been told that makes me go, "Oh, hold." That,
Mm.
no,
Mm.
because spirit is spirit,
Mhm.
and what they teach is how to connect more deeply to God. It does not give any, requirement of God is this or God is that. What I
Mhm.
think Christianity and Western philosophy has looked at is Hinduism,
Mhm.
and Hinduism is a codified religion. Yoga philosophy is separate from that, but Hindus
Mhm.
do practice yoga. But
Oh.
yoga philosophy is it has existed long before Hinduism. And
Mm.
so this idea that the 2 are the same is a Western thing.
So it's
There are
kinda
also
like, if I'm understanding you correctly, it's almost like
Mhm.
guilty by association.
Yes,
Because and when you think about it, I think about it even from a sense of Christianity,
yes,
because that's why it's even harder for me to, like, wear this badge of, "Oh, I am
yes,
this, I am that," because when
yes.
you get such a bad rep, I
Mm,
have just, influenced so many more people by not wearing this forward badge.
yes.
And that's
You and
just
I are the
that's
same
just
on that,
my
yes.
truth,
Mhm.
because that guilty by association. There's just
That's
been
it.
there's a trend going on. I don't know if you've seen it, but there was this trend
Mhm,
going on where on TikTok they were calling like all of these churches and
mm,
asking for formula for their baby. And the
Mm.
amount of people that said no, it was like, oh my gosh. Oh my, and it was like,
Oh,
this is where
boy.
they want us to go, to the church. And I'm like, no, this is not,
Right.
this isn't us. But it's unfortunate when you put yourself in these organizational categories like that, you almost become a product of what they display because, oh, you're part of that. Oh, you're part of the
Mhm.
Mason group, so they did that. You're part of that. Oh, you're a Republican. Oh, so you're a part of that.
Right, right.
It's like there is,
Yeah,
and it's so interesting that we do this as a body of people. And you study the brain, so maybe you can help us. But it's really hard for us to understand that things are just not quite that black and white.
they're not.
There's
They're
complexities to
not.
things because we're multidimensional, and so it's just, and
Yeah.
so I'm very curious to understand, because that's my first time hearing that you have yoga and it's practiced well before the Hinduism, and Hinduism used it. You thought that that was it, almost like
Yeah,
Q-tips.
well, you have to remember all of the codified religions, including Christianity, are codified by humans, right? But there were, uh, spiritual practices around the world long before each religion was codified. We have to remember Jesus didn't come here to start a new religion. That was
Mm,
not his purpose, right? And so we have to remember or really go back to the roots of. And
mm,
yoga is and was a spiritual practice that helped people turn their attention inward to find
mhm.
God.
That's
That's
it,
really
and that's
that's all it
honestly
was.
and the idea of the
Mhm.
podcast and where I am now in my business came inside of a yoga session. I was
Yeah,
literally doing yoga when the download came. And
there you
so
go.
here's where I'm settling myself. And again, I deserve the right to be wiser tomorrow. But here is where
Yeah.
I'm settling myself, is that the bigger picture that I feel is so beautiful here
Mm.
is that we get an opportunity to tune into our own discernment. And we get an
Absolutely.
opportunity to decide before we go into a yoga session, do
Yep,
we want to entrust this instructor with our mind, body, and spirit? And
that's right.
that's how I that resonates so much with my spirit right now, because I'm
Yeah.
gonna be honest with you. I went to Mexico with my husband and I wanted to go to the yoga. Oh my gosh, having yoga down at the bungalow and all that. I got there,
Mhm.
we just missed it. And we were just in
Ah,
time for body stretch. And it was
okay.
a little disappointment, but I said, okay, God, continue to lead me. I don't know who that woman was. I'm in Mexico. I don't know what's going, I don't know.
Right.
But I was thankful and I was discerning and I was at peace about it. Same thing
Mhm.
happened when I was in Atlanta. And the thing that
Mm.
made it unusual is that I got to the yoga session and everybody was standing outside. It was early morning session. And people
Mhm.
were like, oh my gosh, this never happens. I've been going here for 6 years. They never not showed up. I hope everything's okay. Everybody
Yeah.
was so shocked that this particular yoga instructor didn't show up that day, the day that
Yeah.
I came. And so hey, I don't know, but I just know
Right,
when I'm supposed
right.
to be in the room, I'm in the room. And when I'm not supposed to be, whatever needs to happen, happens so that I don't get that space. And then I think that's the piece and the grounding, because the person that I did go, I actually know that yoga instructor personally. And I
Mhm.
got the download. I know her personally. I know her, her spirit from a
Yeah.
spiritual level and plenty intimate settings. And so, and she loves God and believes God and all the things, right? And
Right.
so it's the same with a therapist. It's the same with
Yeah.
a doctor. It's the same with, so it's like, it's
Yeah.
not that big of a conversation when you really look at, you need discernment before you engage with any level of growth, practice.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
In the therapy world, we always recommend that if you're looking for a new therapist, you interview 2 or 3, right? Book consultations. Most therapists offer free consultations. You do 2 or 3, and then you figure out which one of those is
I
for
did that
you.
for the first time in my adult
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
I ended up interviewing a therapist today. It was a phenomenal conversation. You should definitely check
Nice.
it out. Yeah, it was another podcast. And I did it, and it was the best experience ever, and it put me
Yeah.
in the power seat again. I get to decide.
Mhm. Yeah,
I get to
on
decide,
which person you're gonna choose
you
to work with.
know?
Yep.
And I
There
believe that's the piece, and especially, like, knowing that there's some theology there because like your brother, that he knows you. You're his sister. He knows that you love
Mhm.
God, you know God. But because that theology is so
Yeah.
strong, it's like, nope. I don't know what,
Yeah.
what's gonna happen, and so I get the
Yeah.
caution, but it is a really good conversation to continue to keep having so that more people
Absolutely.
can see different perspectives around it. So for sure.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about your work, and I hope that you remember to insert the the thing that made me go, huh, into this thing. Is this legal?
Uh-oh.
Is this
So, I became a therapist right out of my graduate studies. I went right into private practice, with supervision, but I wanted to be able to, especially as a Black woman, offer therapy to our own community because I'm in
Yeah.
my 50s, so I come from an era where Black folks didn't go to therapy. That
No,
was
what? You was
just it.
crazy. You was
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Exactly. We
Yeah.
didn't do that. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to offer a space where folks that look like us could,
Have a
really
safe place.
tune in and have a safe place to work through old stuff that needed to be released.
Mm.
And I for the first couple of years,
Mhm.
um, was like, "Okay, yep, this is therapy, this is the training this that I got and so forth." But there was a time early on when I started to realize that talk therapy by itself was not going to be enough. All the
Mm.
training, all the theories, all the ways to put it in action were there, and a lot of people do benefit from,
Mhm.
like, cognitive behavioral therapy,
Mhm.
right? That is one of the big ones right now.
Mhm.
Um, but it doesn't always speak to the soul. It
Mm.
does not speak to the spirit of a person in a lot of ways. Now, I uniquely went through a program that allowed for spirit to show up in the room. I went to Loyola.
No.
Loyola offered at that time a pastoral counseling program, like 15 minutes from my house. I was in class with people who would drive 2 hours. They were in Pennsylvania. They lived in New
Wow.
Jersey. And I was just blessed that I already lived in Maryland and the campus was 15 minutes from my house.
Wow. That's amazing.
And it was amazing. And I loved the program. And it it allowed me to um, offer therapy that invited
Mm.
clients to
I love
bring
that
their
word.
full
Yeah.
self into the room. And that's why I chose that program. But even still, the theories themselves were never spiritually based. So you had to
Mm.
bring spirit in the ways that you knew how, right? And
Mm.
so, um, but the first couple of years in, I realized this talk therapy by itself might not be enough. That embodiment, and I didn't know that word then, but embodiment was going to be really key of spirit, right? So you're going to
Mm.
work through things, work through past traumas, but then where does that leave you? Right?
Mm.
What gets cleared away usually needs something else to be brought in, right? And
Mm.
so some of my and a lot of my clients are not Christian. And so that's the other thing. As a
Mm.
therapist, I'm not going to be putting my beliefs necessarily on someone else, right?
Mm.
Um, and so mindfulness about 20 so years ago, mindfulness really started to become a thing, so to speak, here in the States. And in my studies, in my graduate studies, we did talk a lot about mindfulness practices, which does
Mhm.
include yoga practices, which does include meditation. And
Mhm.
so, and breath work. And so those are some of the things that I started to early on bring into my practice with
Mm.
people was just to help them to, instead of just talking
Mhm.
about the problem and regurgitating the
Or what
problem.
they think the problem is, 'cause
Right.
sometimes yeah.
hmm and helping them to reconnect to their breathing, to just
Mm.
pause and come to their breath and to notice what they notice in their bodies.
Mm,
As they're talking, what's coming up for them, right? What
mm,
are they most aware of when they pause?
mm.
That helps them to slow down, turn inward, and connect to their inner guidance. Intuition is something that has been so trained out of us as human beings, especially women, but
You're
also
talking good. I love
but
what you said.
also men.
Trained out of us.
Trained out of us because 'cause we're born
Yes.
with it. We're
Yes.
all born with it, but it is trained out of us, and one of
Mm.
the things that I have worked over the years with so many clients was helping them to reawaken intuition,
That's
to
it.
help them to
Yeah.
turn inward and really listen for and listen to their inner voice,
Oh,
and so
this is good.
that's
I
where
have
spirit started
to,
to come in.
yes, listening
Yeah,
to that inner voice.
yeah,
So essentially, once you create that safe environment for them, and it's the
yeah.
full mind, body, spirit,
Mhm.
then are you speaking to the subconscious?
You can be speaking to the subconscious. So the subconscious is that part of the brain that holds on to the conditioning, the training, the early childhood experiences, everything that happened from birth, and for some people they go back to pre-birth, all the way up to age 7 or 8, right? Those are the
Mm.
automatic things that are part of who we are and the foundation of the identity that we have stepped into our young lives and then into our adult lives. And if we never pause to question the things that we believe and the habits that we have, we will take that conditioning right into our graves.
And that is
But
why
therapy is supposed to be why, what and how you start to, like, question those things.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's why, and even this podcast, that's
Mhm.
what it's designed to do, is
Yeah.
to provoke the questioning.
Yes.
Because if you're really grounded in your belief in your relationship with God, then there should be no
Mhm.
intimidation. There
That's
should
right.
be a level of confidence to question, because if you
Yeah.
know that you have a relationship with God, then you
Mhm.
filter that through that relationship. And whenever people are closed-minded, essentially what it expresses is an insecurity with their relationship,
Yep.
because once you're grounded and you know, you can filter anything through there. And hey, what
That's
is that?
right.
Show me what this means. Am I seeing this a different way? And you filter
Mhm.
it through that relationship. And that's what you're saying about the intuition. And I
Yes.
believe that that is so true, that the more and more we live on this earth, the less and less soul, it's like we're becoming a soulless society.
Yeah.
We're losing that aspect of
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's why with the app that we've created, that was the main purpose, is to give
Okay.
people that anchor to come back home, to
Yeah.
ask them through questions. It's questions, so thought provoking questions. You're not going to just be asked. And it's like, because when that spirit gets asked a question, it
Yeah.
opens up, it has to go search for the answer, right? You know how the brain works and neuroscience. Once that question gets open,
That's it.
it's searching. It's searching, you can't stop it.
That's
And
right.
then when that answer comes, then now it literally changes the fabric of who you are. You can't be that version of yourself anymore. Now you
That's
have more
right.
wisdom, you have more insight. And that's why that, I don't know, I can't hear this, the interruption or even distorting. Like some people can listen to the podcast and literally it gets distorted or they have to turn it off. That is the part you lean in on, because that's
Mhm.
the interrupter. That's
Yeah.
the thing that's like, and yeah, I would love, my hope is that people get free, you know, um,
Indeed.
through these practices, even the practices that you're doing. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit
Yeah.
more about some of the modalities that you use, and the
Yeah.
outcomes that you've been able to witness through your work.
Yeah. So the 3 modalities that I work with primarily are psychotherapy, yoga therapy, and psychedelic therapy. And so psychedelic therapy kind of popped up in my purview right around the time Maryland started talking about, legalizing cannabis. And so this was back
Mm.
in 2014, maybe?
Wow, wow, I
Somewhere in
didn't
there,
realize it had been
14 or
that
15.
long. Wow.
When I first heard they were looking to, legalize. And back then, I had a client who was, kind of part of the, grassroots effort to bring cannabis as a medicinal, substance to the state of Maryland, and
Mm.
I asked her, and I said, "Why would you or anyone," and mind you, so let me give you my history.
Yeah, give us your
I am a
history.
I'm a preacher's kid,
Oh,
raised in the
wow.
church,
Wow.
and never had used cannabis. So, like,
Wow.
let's this and I by this time we were having this conversation, I'm in my mid-40s.
Oh,
Okay, so
wow.
so that's the context I'm in.
Yes.
Right? And so I've been a therapist for some time. I had already started working on I hadn't even done my yoga therapy training yet, but I had become a yoga teacher by that point. And, so I said to her, "Why would anyone want to use cannabis in place of their mental health meds that they get from
Right,
their psychiatrist? Like,
right.
help me understand."
Yeah, right. It's power in questions, the right questions get you.
Exactly. And so when she answered the question, it was compelling enough for me to actually go and look up the research.
Wow.
Because a lot of the medications, and I've known this from the beginning, a lot of the medications that are prescribed by psychiatry are either not effective and
Mm.
or come with a lot of
Side
side.
effects. I'm
Yes.
telling you.
Side effects on top of side effects. And so there's a lot of people that don't want to take them, do not want to rely on them. And
Oh, that's good.
oftentimes with depression itself, we have found through the research time and time again, in these last, I would say 15 years, that depression can come from not anywhere, but from multiple sources, right? So
Mm,
yes, you could have a chemical imbalance in your brain, so to speak, is kind of the layman's term. But you could
mhm.
also be situationally depressed. Like someone
Mm.
dies in your life, you might be depressed, right?
Yes.
You lose your job, you might
Yeah.
be depressed.
Yeah.
You lose a relationship that meant the world to you, you might be depressed, but it
Yeah.
might not be a chemical imbalance in your brain. Through
Yeah.
the research, they have also found that a lot of the chemicals that we always associated with the brain function are also created in the gut. And with
Mm.
the very standard American diet, very poor diet, we kill off a lot of those chemicals in our gut, which a lot of them help us with mood. So if you have a really
Mm.
poor diet, it stands to reason you may be experiencing depression.
Mm.
So that's another place. And so it doesn't always, if you have that, I would say, version of depression, meds might not do anything for you,
Mm.
right? If you are situationally depressed, meds might not do anything for you. The research has shown that antidepressants help about one third of the people who take
Are
them.
kidding me. One third?
One third.
Now that's the part no one is
And
talking about.
exactly. And for those people that it does help, it may not help them long term.
Right.
They
And you
may
mentioned
stop
something that
working
was really
eventually.
serious when you said about people being addicted, you know,
Yeah.
becoming addicted.
Yeah.
That's, very disheartening to know
Yeah.
that you never
Relying
even
on
thought
them.
about drugs and
Yeah.
nothing. And then you get into this circumstance that requires you to take it temporarily. And then you end up, I
Yeah.
know personally of a husband who ended up
Mm.
losing his whole family. And it just came from an accident where he was ended up being prescribed,
Wow.
and it became an addict. And
Yeah.
so
Yep.
These things are really true, and
Yeah.
it really is really interesting to me that you've been able to take something that you were once not aware of, research it,
Mhm.
and add it as a part of your method. And what type of
Yeah,
results
so
have you seen just with people, you know, doing specifically the cannabis? Because that's very interesting to me. And
yeah, because
I
it's
think
such a demonized drug,
yeah, it's
right?
like, huh? Yeah.
Everybody has their stories about the
Literally, most people who are
demonization.
associated with it is has nothing to do with with treating yourself medically. So
Exactly.
to the point where my oldest daughter, she was like, "Wait a minute, is that like a medicine that people like? Yeah, that was the original intent, you know."
That was the
Um,
original intent,
yeah, but we talked
indeed.
about guilty by association earlier, right?
There it is. There it
So
is. And so I did a little bit of research and was like, "Ah, okay." And I kinda kept that in the back of my mind and allowed myself to at least not demonize my clients who I suspected or
yeah,
knew for a fact used cannabis.
right.
I think cannabis became fully legal in the state of Maryland, I wanna say 2017,
Okay.
somewhere in there. And then around 2018 or 19, I discovered by watching a series called so I have, a subscription to the Gaia channel, which
Mm.
is a channel that had that started off only showing yoga, like having yoga and yoga teachers and meditation and so forth. Now they offer a whole plethora of metaphysical um, courses as well as shows. And so I was up late and they had premiered a series called Psychedelica. And I was like, huh, what is this about? And it was featuring all the different psychedelics. I think there are 7 episodes, and they featured in each episode a psychedelic and what the benefits of that psychedelic was, the history of that psychedelic. And one of the psychedelic episodes was cannabis. So I'm going, wait, cannabis is a psychedelic? Huh. Okay. And I watched that episode 2 or 3 times,
Wow.
and one of the gentlemen who, they had interviewed for that episode was Daniel McQueen, and he had written the book called Psychedelic Cannabis, and it had
Mm.
just come out or was about to come out, and I ordered it. And got halfway through the book and signed up for the training because what I realized was the healing power of cannabis used at the psychedelic level not only could be beneficial for physical issues, because that's what dispensaries were opening up and showing us, right? Because of the research that cannabis could be used in a medicinal way, but it could also be used for mental health. And
Mm.
so I signed up for the training. This was 2019 at the very end. And at the beginning, and the training was scheduled for April, I want to say it was April 1st, like that first week of April of
Mhm.
2020. Well, we all know what happened in
Yeah.
2020, right?
Right. So I know your business
Um,
boomed. A
it
lot of
so
people need it.
it was an interesting time. So I did the training in 2020. They turned it the first portion of it into an online training.
Mm.
And then because I did all 4 levels, and then I went to Colorado for the 4th level,
Mm.
the following 2 years later. And it's a magnificent plant, and I
Mm.
truly believe the demonization of cannabis
Uh-huh.
is on an energetic level. I truly
Mm.
believe on an energetic level the powers that be knew what it could unlock for people and how they could reconnect to source, to themselves, and heal trauma and
Mm.
wake up to who they really are.
Wow.
I
My.
truly believe that, and at an energetic level, they were like, "Nope, we cannot have
Cannot.
that."
Right. Hence why it's banned.
And
And I just I gotta pause
yeah.
here because I gotta extract
Mhm.
a thing that really it's like this thread that's running through this conversation. And if you're
Yeah,
not attentional, you could miss it. And that's why I would say the one who's most attentive is the one who lives
yeah,
the best life
yeah.
because it's the little seemingly insignificant patterns that we miss. And when you sharing your story, I couldn't help but to
Mhm.
see that there was a thread of how things were introduced to you. You know,
Yeah.
I was watching this episode and it's usually yoga. That's a thing that that you did know,
Mhm.
mixed in with something that this is interesting. Now they're
Yep.
introducing other things, you see? And then the
Yeah,
same thing with the college and they were there and everybody was traveling everywhere that had knew about it. And you just found out
yeah.
about it. And it just happened to be 15 minutes from where you
Uh-huh.
were. And happened to be,
Exactly.
and then you happened to meet this person that ended up
Mhm.
talking to you about it. You said, well, how is that? You see, so it's always this familiarity that
Yep.
introduces unfamiliarity that piques
Yeah.
that curiosity. You could have just judged it and shut it down, boom. But instead,
Yep.
you piqued the curiosity, and it
Mhm.
became the catalyst to the
Yeah.
next level of your work. And this is why
There we go.
this type of posture and this type of mindset is so imperative to growth and purpose because
Yes.
it truly does become a catalyst to what God has for us next. And it's all
Yes.
in our ability to
We
be able to
have to
lean
be paying
in.
attention.
Yes, we have to pay attention.
Gotta pay
So
attention.
that is so cool
Yeah.
that you did that, you were able to experience this. And
Yeah.
now you were able to aid your clients in such a profound way to the point
Indeed.
where you said that people are
Yeah.
flying in to work with
Yeah.
you.
So in the school that I trained in, it's out in Colorado, and it's amazing how many people will fly in because in their state, they don't have
Right,
access to this at all,
right.
right? And so they would fly in for this kind of treatment, and I started offering, cannabis-assisted psychedelic therapy, I would say the summer of 2021, once the COVID kind of let up and we could, like, be in a
Mm-hmm.
room with other people,
Right.
and it has had not only powerful effects on other people's lives, but it has been for my life as well to see healing happen in real time, right? Aha
Mm,
moments that happen in real time.
mm,
I worked with one young man, he had come to, do a session with me, and he had hard to treat depression, and if anybody knows what hard to treat depression is or looks like, it's rough. It's that
mm,
person usually goes through every medication
mm,
that is, for depression, and none of it touches,
mm,
right? The depression does not lift. And
mm,
so he had come and he had some big decisions to make in his life,
mm,
and he could not make them. Like, depression is like wearing a weighted blanket on you all the time,
mm.
and it just prevents you from moving, right?
Well, let me
Think of it
ask you this from just from
that
your
way.
work.
Mhm.
Because even with, speaking to the professionals that follow us,
Yeah.
90% of them are in the corporate setting.
Yeah.
And I would say, I don't know the percentage, but there's a lot of people that have experienced depression
Mhm.
unaware. I remember
Oh,
being
yeah.
in corporate. And the only reason why I knew that I was experiencing depression was because I happened to be looking on my phone. This ad popped up and I just took a little quiz and it came back.
Mm.
I'm like, what? Depressed? I was so
Yeah.
shocked
Yeah.
because I was going to my ministry. I was volunteering.
Yep.
I was doing good in school. Plus I was,
Yeah.
achieving high performance at my work and all the things, but
Oh, yeah.
silently underneath. And
Yeah.
so and I don't know if you believe this, but I would love to get your perspective on this. But when I began to speak to my then pastor about it, it was like,
Mhm.
depression, I call it not a narcissistic trait, but it's like it's almost like selfish in a sense, because in order for you to be depressed, you have to look constantly at your circumstances,
Mhm.
you. So it's like this narcissistic view where it's the only way
Yeah.
that you're doing it, the only way that you're depressed is because you're looking inward at you. And so his thing was, if you look out and have gratitude and look, outside of you, God, gratitude, all
Mhm.
the different things, then you can shift yourself from depression. What are your thoughts about that? Is it that
So
simple?
I think you're right with one caveat. So yes, a depressed person is often looking at themselves, but through muddy lenses. They
Mm,
are not seeing themselves as God sees them. They
mm,
see themselves from a negative aspect, from what conditioning tells them they should be, but they are not, right? They have deemed
mm,
themselves not. What society says they should be, but they deem themselves not.
mm.
They see themselves through a lens of I am wrong in
So it's
some way,
self-inflicted.
shape, or fashion.
So
Yeah,
it's
self-inflicted, yes, in some ways, yes. And so that's the difference. When you are seeing yourself through God's eyes, you don't see yourself that way,
Mhm.
all right?
So do
And
you
so
say that it's
that's the
hard to
difference.
treat someone who doesn't believe in God with depression?
No, I've had atheist clients.
So
So, yeah,
how do you skip past go
yeah. And
that
so
and still create an
for
outcome?
yeah, so for those clients, it's really about shifting or reframing how they see themselves. I truly believe everybody has spirit, whether
Right.
they acknowledge it
So
or not.
that's the common
And so,
denominator.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's learning as a therapist or whoever is doing whatever, like coaching or whatever
Yeah.
it is,
Leading a team
learning
or
yeah,
anybody.
learning to use the language that resonates for the people that are listening to you.
Wow, right
That's
there.
really what it is.
Powerful.
And that's in a lot of ways my issue with the church is because
Yes,
they do things one way
I
and one
agree.
way
I
only.
agree. Yes.
And I was talking with someone recently because we hear all about like manifestation, and I
Yeah.
truly
Yes.
believe in manifestation.
Right.
But the church I grew up in,
Oh yeah,
these
you
were
better
a bunch
not
of
use that word. That's a
manifestors.
cuss word. Yeah, that's a curse word, I mean. You're not you manifest
You
what?
can't use that
What?
word
He
there.
said power to
But
manifest.
they all do it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's man, you're talking
When we
good.
when we quote the scripture, "Ask and it shall be given," that
That's
is
manifesting by
manifestation.
definition. Literally. Yeah. And I love this so much because as leaders, it's very important for us to have that emotional intelligence to
Yeah,
understand that
absolutely.
when we talk about being agreeable, it's not about, changing your authentic self, your principles, standards, and values for someone else. Being
Yeah,
agreeable means meeting that person where they are. I love you.
that's
I asked
right.
you a question and you said yes with a caveat. That's
Yeah, yeah,
powerful. We
yeah,
gotta learn to stop just no. That's not no, I'm not gonna that energy in itself.
yeah,
It doesn't
yeah,
invite vulnerability, it doesn't invite curiosity, it doesn't invite conversation. And
right.
so, yes, and
That's right.
yes, I
That's
get where
right.
you are. And here, just the added dot. Let's not tear up the puzzle you've gotten already. Let's add, let's consider
So
another
true.
piece, and you can look at the piece and say, oh, this could go here,
Mm,
you know?
yeah.
And if we did that as a body, this is what peace driven leadership is about, because I really do believe that when we love, live, and lead in this way, it
Mhm.
creates harmony. It creates this
Absolutely.
harmonious unity that
Yep.
is derived from love, which is
Yeah,
the true expression of who God is. And from that
absolutely.
place, healing can come and, all of the wonderful things that all of us want at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
yeah,
So I really do.
absolutely.
Yeah, I love the work that you do. I'm thankful. that I
You.
can meet, people like you who have a very clear understanding of how to navigate in this world with people who do not think like us and who do not
Yeah,
have the same experiences as us, and that
that's right.
value people enough and respect them enough to allow them to have their own lived experience separate from ours without it
Mhm.
taking away from their or our experience. Right. And
Right.
I'll say this one thing and then we'll land the plane is that I remember I had one client that was an atheist, but I remember working in a partnership with a gentleman, and he confessed to me. I say confess because it's like, to say that you're an atheist is like, oh, what? So people are
Mhm.
even, a little subconscious about that. And he
Yeah.
was actually surprised that I was a Christian. I didn't know how to feel that was a compliment or what, but he was like, "No, you're just your
Mhm.
personality was just so." He said, "That's why I never even shared this." And he was like, "I don't
Yeah.
even, because corporate." He's like, "I don't even want, corporate this to get out, but I've never shared this
Mhm.
with anyone. I just wanted to share this, And I just started to ask him what was his thing, what was, the thing that,
Mhm.
and that was the whole thing. He was like, "I just don't understand why, I can't just have my own thoughts without being forced in." He's like, I took my kid to this camp and I loved it. They did so good. But then my kid was coming home. He had all these different viewpoints, and I was raising him. And I got so frustrated with the team, the staff, because I'm like,
Um,
what? This is, y'all didn't say this was a Christian camp. It's not anywhere here. And then you come here and
mm,
then you're like force feeding my kid these beliefs, uh, you know. And so it's that lack of boundary and that lack of consent that I
yes.
believe that people are having an issue with.
Yeah.
And I believe that that was the thing. He was like, at the end of the day, the thing about it is that what people really believe is that if Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light, and I see you going down the wrong way, this is what was told to me by a blood bought, like devoted Christian, right? And the way they look at it, why they're so forceful and so passionate, is that if I see that you're going to hell with a handbasket, and I say you're my brother, you're my sister, why wouldn't I stop that car for? Why wouldn't I jump out and say, "Hey, did you give your life to God?
Mhm.
Hey, did you, how can I let someone come into my office or come into my space and not make sure that they're good when I know that if they
Mhm.
don't, at any point they could die and they could be, and so there's this responsibility and this weight that comes with spreading
Right.
that and they're doing that from a place of love. Is that's the perception. So I would love to just for you to give me your perspective on that approach, and how can we, if we had to
Mhm.
leave a message with that person,
Yeah.
what would you say to a person who is in that space where they feel like they're like they're a crusade to make sure that everyone has that chance and they need to know about Jesus and
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? That they need to make sure if you come in my path, you're gonna know. Me and my house, this whole like dominant, hey, you don't believe what I
Mhm.
believe, out of here, What do you say to that
Yeah.
person?
I think when there are opportunities to share faith, I think that that can be done in a way that starts with, "I'd love to share something with you.
Mm,
Do you are you would you be open to hearing, or do you have
mm,
capacity to hear that right now?" Or something of that nature. I do believe there should be some level of consent,
mhm,
in hearing those conversations, because I truly believe, like, my brother, for instance, he has conversations with some of his peers who in his, career path who are Muslim, right? I'm sure he wouldn't want any of them to be walking up on him talking about
that part.
Islam when
Yeah,
he's not open to hearing about that,
right. That's right.
right? And
Yeah,
so there should be some openness and
yeah,
dialogue, but willing dialogue. I don't
yeah.
think that we need to be beating anybody over the head with our beliefs. religious
Right.
or otherwise.
Any
And I'll leave
beliefs.
that right
I
there.
love the way you said that though. I believe that's with anything. And that's why the
Yeah.
very first podcast that I said, I was like, hey, you're not gonna be
Mhm.
vomiting your opinions over here. And if the feed doesn't feed us, we don't it's delete it. It needs to feed us. Because
Amen.
I do. I think that we're part of this culture where it's freedom of speech culture, and we're just like,
Yes,
just getting it out. And it's like, no,
that's right. Right.
let's be more grounded. Let's be more
Yeah,
honoring of other
yeah.
people's thoughts and experiences. And, you
Mhm.
know, you see somebody with a
Yeah,
tattoo. Oh, you're not supposed to tattoo your body, but maybe that was how they got through that healing season. Maybe somebody
that's right.
tragically lost and they needed that, on them. They didn't know that
Yeah,
they were branding their name and they were calling, on all these deep revelations that different people get in their journeys.
yeah,
And what I find is that the people that do that are very passionate
yeah.
oftentimes. And
Yep.
that creates even less of a safety because it's like, oh, well, and that's what makes it feel uninviting, and
Mhm.
judgmental. And so people just rather just dim down or, not be the fool or feel like they can't. And it's happening on both ends. Like I said, even the atheist is
Yeah,
dimming down and not letting anyone know. Like, we
that's
got to
right.
get out of that. Let's bust open, be our
Yeah.
authentic self. This is who we
Yep.
are and stand in that truth. So if you're listening to this as we close on today, I just hope that what you got from this message is that be unapologetically you, especially if you're in a corporate
Mm.
culture where depression is ringing heavy and people are, peopling, to say
Yes,
that,
indeed.
how do you anchor yourself in your peace? The way you do that is really doing those practices that allow you to go and stay within. That is your peace place. Make that
Yeah.
your normal. What would you like to leave the people with today?
Ugh. Being your authentic self needs to be your identity. It really
Mhm.
needs to be who you are, who you show up as in the world, right? And
Mhm.
so no matter how you get there, whether talk therapy is the way that helps you get through and get to this place where you are your authentic self, whether that is some form of mindfulness or yoga practice that helps you get there, if that is psychedelics, which we're hearing about everywhere, if you are actually stepping into that work, that is definitely bound to get you to your authentic self. No matter what method you're using, that should be your ultimate goal, is getting to your authentic self and reconnecting to source, reconnecting and coming home to yourself.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Thank you so very much.
You
You
are
heard it
so
here, you all. Continue to tune in. Listen, this has been incredible. I love the conversation. I love the transparency. Continue to listen to real conversations with real leaders who are doing incredible work in this world inside of our app. If you have not downloaded it yet, be sure to download our app where you can truly love, live, and lead differently and lead from within. Like I always say, you can carry it. It's not about how much you carry, it's about how well you carry it. And you got
there
to
you
be
go.
able to take care of yourself. So, peace
Yeah.
driven leadership is not something you find, it's something you create. And this is your moment to create it. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Until next time, we'll see you next week. Bye bye for now.